couple months ago, I got to travel to Oakland, California for work, and at the airport I started reading this book, The Uninhabitable Earth by David Wallace Wells, and to be honest, it really fucked me up. I was traveling by myself, and when I got to Oakland, I was eating alone at this restaurant, reading this book, and I started having like the symptoms of a panic attack. Like I got really nauseous and shaky, and like I just wanted to cry. Like I felt like I had this like overwhelming just like need to cry, but I was in a public space waiting for my food. So I ended up getting it to go and leaving as quickly as I could and got back to my hotel room, just let it all out. And I somehow managed to prevent myself from spiraling into an outright panic attack. I've always known about climate change, since I was a kid, and I knew it was a problem. I studied environmental economics in school, but for some reason it really hit me on this trip, the extent of how fucked we are. I just felt this super overwhelming grief for all that has already been destroyed and all that will continue to be destroyed, because we're not going to solve this problem overnight. Our planet is dying and we are on the brink of the 6th mass extinction. Like, how can you possibly cope with that? That's how I felt in that moment, like this realization that we have all the tools and knowledge and even a small window of time to save our planet, yet people are just going on with their lives like everything is fine. I may have personally gone through this awakening and gone vegan, changed my lifestyle habits, like trying to be more zero waste, shopping secondhand, but I just had to face the fact that every single day a new clothing haul video is posted on YouTube that gets tens of thousands more views than my videos ever will. How are we going to convince every single person to stop with all of their destructive behaviors in time? How are we going to overthrow capitalism in time? How are we not only going to achieve a political revolution here in the United States, but also get the entire world to cooperate? According to the United Nations, we only have 11 years. That's pretty freaking scary. On my day off, I got a chance to walk across the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was really struck by the beauty of the West Coast. But at the same time, I was struck by the realization that San Francisco could literally be underwater in 100 years. As I was walking along the bridge, like looking down at the ocean, I saw a couple of seals just playing, swimming around, and it made me happy. But then, like an hour or so later, I made it to the beach and I saw this dead seal that had washed up, and I couldn't help but think that it's highly likely that humans or human activity caused this poor seal's premature death. It's really hard for me to enjoy traveling and appreciate the beauty of nature when I know that we're destroying it. The day I flew home, it happened to be Earth Day, and I shared this post to convey how I was feeling. Spent the week working out in California and got a day off to explore. Walked across the bridge to Kirby Cove Beach. The Pacific Ocean is one of the most stunning sights I've ever seen. It is a privilege to travel to beautiful places, but a generic happy caption would not convey the underlying sadness I feel and guilt for my personal carbon emissions from flying. No matter where I am, I can see the fucking havoc we've wreaked on this planet. Beetle kill eating up all the trees in Rocky Mountain National Park, smoke from wildfires, litter everywhere, mostly plastic. Even if such destruction manages to evade my eyeballs, I know it's there. Every minute of every day, a dumpster truck of plastic enters our oceans. 50 acres of rainforests are cleared. Over the past 2 decades, we have emitted more greenhouse gas emissions than we did in the previous 10. This means we have caused more warming knowingly than we did in ignorance. Sure, there are many who still deny human-caused climate change, but most people accept the science and want change, but lack political will and personal responsibility. We are fully aware of the uncertain but certainly negative consequences of our actions, yet we go on business as usual. Our response must reflect the scale of the problem. We have 11 years to implement dramatic changes in our infrastructure and lifestyles. Otherwise, we will set off apocalyptic negative feedback loops, and the damage will be irreversible. San Francisco could be submerged underwater within a century. Some say the Green New Deal is too radical and won't pass the Senate. But the Golden Gate Bridge was constructed in the midst of the Great Depression, despite fierce opposition. The dude had a vision, and where there's a will, there's a way. This leads me to the point of this video, which is how to combat climate change anxiety. From my research for this video, it seems that there are two types of climate change anxiety. The first type, which is the type I have, is the anxiety that comes from knowing and understanding the threat because I work as an environmental activist. So every day I'm engaged with these issues. And then there's the type of climate anxiety that stems from direct loss due to climate disasters. People are experiencing PTSD from being uprooted and having their homes destroyed by floods and wildfires. I personally haven't felt the impact of climate change this strongly, but of course I sympathize with those that have. For a solid month after I got back from Oakland, I felt this grief and sadness, fear, just permeating my life. Like, I remember crying, like breaking down in tears while I was on a hike with my mom, which sounds really dramatic, but if you think about it, it's not an irrational fear. So I wanted to share some of the things that helped me come out of this negative headspace. Number one, the realization that action is the antidote to despair. Climate change is the biggest threat that humanity has ever faced. We are truly in a crisis that is like no other. This should be our number one political priority because it is all-encompassing. Not to diminish all of the other problems in the world, which there are many worthy causes, but if we don't solve this crisis, we're not going to solve any of these other problems because we won't have a planet to live on. If you read The Uninhabitable Earth, which I know I've done a good job selling this book so far, but if you read it, you'll realize that climate change is only going to exacerbate all of these other problems and create even more political turmoil. We have to prioritize a transformation in our global energy systems. This will take unprecedented political action and social change. As Greta Thunberg said, why waste precious time arguing about what and who needs to change first? Everyone and everything has to change. You cannot control the actions of others, but you can control your own actions. If you think that you are doing enough because you're vegan, you are gravely mistaken. There's always room for personal growth. If you're frustrated by all the people that outright deny reality and don't even seem to care about the future of this planet, and you're thinking like, these people are holding us back, then you should probably look in the mirror. Are you doing everything you can? Are you protesting in the streets? Are you voting outside the general election? You could be the one to inspire someone to take action who right now is only paying lip service to progressive climate policies. Greta Thunberg's story is the perfect example of how action is the antidote to despair. If you've seen her TED Talk, she talks about how she fell into this deep depression as a young preteen, but she came out of that with the resolve to take action. In this talk, she emphasizes that the one thing we need more than hope is action. Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then and only then, hope will come. So instead of sitting around worrying about the future, we can take action now to protect what we still can. And if we ignore the problem because facing it is too stressful, then we'll be in for a whole lot more anxiety-inducing events in the future. The second thing that helped ease my anxiety was the realization that trying is better than giving up, and trying is good for the soul. In his last sermon before Martin Luther King was assassinated, which I actually referenced in my What Vegans Can Learn from Martin Luther King video, which you should definitely check out, he spoke about the struggle of fighting social norms. It gets discouraging sometimes. It gets very disenchanting sometimes. Some of us are trying to build a temple of peace. We speak out against war, we protest, but it seems that your head is going against a concrete wall. It seems to mean nothing. And so often, you set out to build the temple of peace, you are left lonesome, you are left discouraged, you are left bewildered. Well, that is the story of life. And the thing that makes me happy is that I can hear a voice crying through the vista of time, saying, "It may not come today, and it may not come tomorrow, but it is well within thine heart. It is well that you are trying." This really spoke to me because it is tough to stay persistent when it feels like nothing is actually changing. Like with every step forward, it feels like we're taking 2 steps backwards. But this realization that all we can do is all we can do, and it's better to try than to not try, really struck a chord. Even if you don't achieve a specific goal by a certain time that you wanted to achieve it, trying will always lead to more successful outcomes than giving up. Martin Luther King did not achieve the outcome he desired in his lifetime, but had he not tried, many people would be in an even worse place today. The third thing that helped me was a healthy dose of nihilism. We are, after all, a speck of dust, a pale blue dot in a vast universe. All things eventually come to an end.
Flames to dust, lovers to friends. Why do all good things come to an end?
We are currently in the 6th mass extinction, which, if you think about it, means that there were 5 before us. Obviously, if you watch my content, you know that I'm not a nihilist, but sometimes it's just weirdly comforting to be like, well, you know, it is what it is. On a super scientific level, we're all just collections of atoms whose personalities, thoughts, and actions are just the product of our genetics and our experiences. Free will is an illusion. Whatever will come, will come. Maybe this isn't helpful to you, but for some reason it is to me. Similar to the last point, one thing that may help is shifting your perspective. I like to pretend that I'm a character in some dystopian novel, living through late-stage capitalism and trying to salvage whatever beauty there is left. Number 5, humor. This one is pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we all know laughter is the best medicine. And self-care is super, super important to avoid burnout as an activist. So when you make time to rest, make sure to laugh. Number 6, community. One of the biggest things that helps anxiety in general is a community. In my experience, one of the best ways to find a strong community is through activism. I've met so many amazing people through Greenpeace and Anonymous for the Voiceless, and I recently joined the Extinction Rebellion, which I'm super excited about. Of course, I'm going to try my absolute hardest to fight and avert the catastrophic changes that the UN has warned us about. But if we fall short, I know that I'll have my friends to lean on, and we will build the dopest hippie commune in the mountains that is 100% sustainable and have an epic sound system run on renewable energy. Already saving my money, it's gonna be lit. Lastly, I want to share a clip that my coworker recorded when Annie Leonard, who is the executive director of Greenpeace USA, visited the Denver office and graced us all with her presence. Annie Leonard is so inspiring, and this experience was incredibly uplifting and really helped pull me out of that negative place that I was in. This clip I'm about to show is her response to our question about her self-care routine and how she manages the stress and anxiety that comes with the job.
So I surround myself with people that are part of that and that are, I read journal articles online about different kinds of innovations that people have come up with, because you've got to know that change is possible. If you don't believe that, you can't bring your whole heart and soul into this fight, and change is so possible. And the third thing I do is I made a conscious decision that I'm going to stay hopeful and joyful. And for me, this is a very personal act of resistance. I think about the oligarchs and the corporate maniacs that have taken so many things from us, right? They have taken our ability to swim in rivers that no longer exist or that are too dirty. They have taken from us people who have died from cancer or other diseases that were totally preventable. They took from me the ability to breastfeed my child without fear. I wanted to be a mother my whole life. I finally was a mother. Breastfeeding should be the most sacred, fundamental act of nurturing. And I was looking at my little baby thinking about all the persistent organic pollutants transferring from me to her. They have taken so much from us that I have drawn a line right here and say, you will not take my day. That is my ultimate form of resistance, is that I will wake up every single morning full of love and full of joy and full of hope, even as I fight. This is not all kumbaya. We're going to fight those bastards. But I'm going to do it from a place of joy and love, because I am not giving them 1 minute of my day. So it is a decision that I made, and I invite you guys all to join me in that decision, because it is a damn good way to live. Done. Do I need to do
Yo, how when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, nah, no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan, man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, nah, no meat now.